There was a case at the Supreme Court involving the use of peyote by Native Americans. And the newspapers really missed the main story behind the story, which was the court said that they could not do this, that using peyote was illegal even if it were Native Americans, and they therefore couldn't get unemployment compensation benefits when they were fired from their job. And that, as I've said before, that didn't pass the Bubba test. But you know, the average American hears that story and ho-hum, and they change channels on their television. But what people didn't realize was that in the context of deciding the case, the Supreme Court changed the rules for everybody so that no one's religious liberty was protected anymore, not just Native Americans. They basically took the old protection that was in the law for religious liberty and dumbed it down to equal protection for everybody. So if your religion was burdened after this case, you couldn't even go to court and complain. So let's just say you had an Orthodox Jewish kid at a public school who needed to wear his yarmulke to school because God requires it. If the school had a policy that said nobody can wear caps to school, he couldn't even complain about it, even though, of course, we know a yarmulke is different from a baseball cap. So the landscape changed for everybody overnight, and nobody realized it because the press missed the story. The religious community, of course, figured it out pretty quickly. I remember going in my office here at the Baptist Joint Committee, picking up the phone and calling Mark Stern, a very prominent Jewish attorney that also worked on religious liberty cases and still does. And I said, Mark, have you read the Smith opinion? And he said, yes, I have. I said, are you as worried about it as I am? And he said, yes, I am. And so we got on the phone with Doug Laycock, who at that time was the University of Michigan Law School, and some other experts in the field, and we all went to New York together and sat down in the office of Dean Kelly, who was the old head of religious liberty for the National Council of Churches, and sat around a big conference table up there to try to figure out what can we do to address this problem, and we came up with the idea of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And once we decided how we were going to move forward, the religious community, the word spread like wildfire. And Brent Walker, who of course is the director of the BJC now, he and I were the two attorneys here. And we essentially led that coalition, and it was everybody from the Christian Coalition and Concerned Women for America and National Association of Evangelicals to People for the American Way and the American Civil Liberties Union, everybody in between, Sikhs and Muslims and Baha'is and Buddhists and Native Americans and you name it. So we had to be very respectful of all those differences. And the BJC had developed a reputation for being a trustworthy broker of these kinds of efforts. The Baptist Joint Committee had brought together people around equal access and had actually drafted the guidelines for the equal access legislation. And people had come to respect the agency's integrity and credibility with groups on the right and the left. We couldn't have done this without the support of President Clinton, but it wasn't just Democrats. I mean, our lead Republican sponsor in the Senate was Orrin Hatch, and over on the House side, Newt Gingrich was one of our sponsors. So, boy, we really had them all, and we got a great unanimous vote out of the House of Representatives, a 97-3 vote out of the Senate. So there was plenty of credit to go around. But the great thing is that we were able to reestablish this fundamental protection for religious liberty that the Supreme Court had so diminished and discarded in that peyote decision 3 years earlier.